Hey everyone, it's Val, and I'm here to talk to you about wonderful Christmas topics. Okay, I'm not. I'm going to talk to you about logical fallacies and why wearing a stole can sometimes drive you nuts, but it looks really good. Just got to get this side down. Perfect. Just like that. Now we got it. Because if I put it up too high, it slides all over. It's a disaster. It's got to be like this. Okay, so anyway, I'm Mallory Cooper. I'm a trans woman, and I talk about all sorts of stuff that may or may not have to do with being trans. That's like the best intro, best description ever. Now you know I just talk about all the things, and they could do with trans. They could have to do with metal chairs that you can't see because they're off camera. Anything. It could be anything. We're talking about anything. But today, it's logical fallacies. Now, what are logical fallacies, you say? So imagine you're like in a conversation with a troll on the internet, and the troll like just spews some garbage that you know is just stupid, and like your bullshit meter goes off, but you're like not quite sure exactly what specifically they did that was like the stupid argument, but you know it's just dumb and you should probably just ignore them at this point and move on. But you can't, because the urge to fight trolls is strong. I understand this a lot myself. But once we identify logical fallacies in their argument, we can just tell them to take a long walk off of an adequately length-sized pier or fly a kite in very nice weather, because we don't wish harm on other people just because they're stupid. That's what bad people do. We're good people. We just tell them to go find better arguments. We're like, you need to go and research more. Talk to me when you've leveled it up a bit. That's what you can tell them. It's great. It's fun. It's perfect. So logical fallacies are just like these lists of things that people do in arguments that are dumb, are hallmarks of poorly constructed arguments, and are things that we should all just kind of stop doing. So I'm going to walk through them. I got a list here that I've put together of 15 logical fallacies that I think are the most common ones that we see, so you can help you identify them, and then help you just shut people down that use them. Shut them down. That's what we're here for. Shut down. All right. So the first one is the straw man fallacy. We've all heard people like mention that as a straw man argument. You know, they just write it off. But what does that mean, a straw man argument? Well, that's like when the idea is that you present this argument, and it's made of brick and stone and steel, and it's rock solid, and then the person's like, I don't want to attack that argument. That looks hard. And they construct a straw man over here that looks like your argument. They attack that and knock it down. Hooray, I defeated the straw man. And that's sort of the whole idea behind the straw man argument. I gotta make sure my microphone isn't being covered up by fur. I'm just gonna move this. Hold, please. There we go. All right, moved it up a little bit. Don't want fur. I mean, I want fur, but the microphone doesn't want fur. It's not in its diet. It's not a fur microphone. I need to get one of those. That'd be better. Okay, so an example of a straw man argument would be when I present an argument about gender. And I talk about like first and second trimester of pregnancy and how gonads form and then brain development happens later on and hormones can be different. I talk about chromosomal differences, brain development differences. I cite studies after studies after studies after studies. There are so many studies on this stuff at this point. It's ridiculous. And I construct all of that and I create this nice big argument, and the person says, yeah, but you got a dick. So, you're just always a guy. Or, how do they know if I have a dick or not? Are they checked? It's hard to tell. I'm not going to stand up and let you examine because I think that would be crude. But if you see me online, you probably know some pictures. It is difficult to tell what I have between my legs, and it's none of your goddamn business. However, you are probably right that I have XY chromosomes. I've never been tested, but we could all probably assume that I have XY chromosomes because I developed a lot of male attributes, and typically, not always, typically the Y chromosome is necessary for those. However, what they've done is instead of like dealing with the well-constructed argument I put together about why these things don't freaking matter, or they do, but they don't matter as much as you think they do. There's a whole host of things that put all this together. Like there are boys in the Philippines who have clitorises until they're about 12 or 13 years old, and once testosterone hits in puberty, boom, grows into a penis. Look at that. What were they before? Anyway. I'm being like super queer in this and extra. And it's just tons of fun because look what I'm wearing, right? I mean, this is such an amazing outfit that you can't help but be like the biggest drag queen queer tranny girl ever. I'm Tranny Claus is what I am today. Tranny Claus is coming to town, and she's telling you about logical fallacies. I kind of feel like ContraPoints. I feel like I'm channeling ContraPoints, and that's like if I were to be a pagan, I would like erect an altar to ContraPoints and like sacrifice false nails, stick on nails and false eyelashes and glitter in her honor every day, every day. So anyway, the straw man is, of course, that they construct this other argument that it's all dependent on whether or not you have a penis or a vagina, which is stupid. I'm sure I'll get onto that later. Rather than actually talk about my real argument about the science of how I don't quite understand what gender is, and there's a whole lot of different rules behind it, and there might even be other chromosomes and parts of the DNA that I forget what they're called, seminoles? Anyway, tiny little snippets of stuff that's in the different DNA, because we all have 46 chromosomes, and each one of those are chock full of DNA, and they've got all sorts of stuff in them. We don't actually know what a lot of it does yet. They actually are relatively certain that more than just the XY chromosomes determine DNA, or determine gender. They're just one of the more obvious ones because they're big. So anyway, straw man, easy. They're just attacking. They're not talking about the thing you're talking about. They made up a new thing to talk about that so they can attack it. Happens all the time. It's annoying. Next up, the bandwagon fallacy. This is when people like just say like, well, everybody else is doing it, we should do it too. I mean, this is, we all heard this. Our father said this to us all. My father said it to me all the time. I don't know about your father, but Dad, if you're watching, I will never jump off the bridge. Don't worry. Even though all my friends jump off the bridge, I'm not going to jump off the bridge too. Don't worry. Even though in the town we grew up, I mean, I guess there were a couple bridges. If I was to jump off, I would at least like break a leg or something like that. I mean, I'd have to land on my head to die coming off most of those bridges in the town we grew up. It looks like I jumped off the train bridge and landed in front of a train and drove over me. Like that would be bad. But it's just the whole bandwagon thing. Like just because someone else is doing it doesn't mean we have to do it, you know. And you can make this argument for, I don't know, gun control. Just because everybody else is getting rid of guns doesn't mean we have to do it. And you can make the same argument for healthcare. Just because everybody else has universal healthcare, we shouldn't have to do it. We should have nothing and all the things. That's what you can take away from this. There's my arguments. Next. The appeal to authority fallacy. So you're in the middle of an argument with somebody, and I've done this too, and I feel such like a douche whenever I do it, but I'm so deep in an argument, I can't back down now, you know, so I just double down on idiocy. But you're like, well, you know, this is how it starts. When you're a little kid, you're like, well, my daddy's a policeman, therefore this thing's right. And later on, when you're older, it's like, well, I studied under Dr. So-and-so, therefore I'm right in this argument, you know. Or I once read a study by a very esteemed person at the IPCC, and they said this, therefore I am right. And it's all really just goes all the way back to my daddy's a doctor, and therefore I'm right. It's like you can't appeal to someone else's authority to make yourself look good. I mean, because most of the time, if you were to do that, they'd be like, well, actually, things are more nuanced than the argument you're trying to produce here right now. So yeah, you can't actually like make this argument in my name. But you get the idea, right? You're not right just because you quoted somebody who's got more letters after their name. You know, and one that drives me nuts is like when people quote like Aristotle. I can't stand Aristotle. Actually, I kind of like Aristotle. But at the same time, Aristotle also thought that like if you dropped two things that were different weights, the heavier thing fell down first and never bothered to test it. And people believed that until, you know, Galileo got around to actually dropping cannonballs out of the Leaning Tower of Pisa. I think, yeah, it was Galileo that did that. If not, I have a doctorate in things that you don't know about, therefore I am correct, and it was Galileo. Ta-da! Appeal to authority. All right. The false dilemma, also known as the false dichotomy fallacy. The idea here is that someone just presents another option and says it has to be one of these two things. An example would be, we could go back to chromosomes versus penises. We could say that, you know, I could be like, I have, this is my setup, you know, I had like a thing like my teens, like I mentioned before, which now it's called like gynecomastia. There's actually a name for it when men grow man boobs, and they're actually legitimately have breast tissue. They're not just fat. It happens in your teens, and they're actually talking about doing some studies to try and figure out if there are more trans women who did this than in the general population, who started to grow breasts in their teens until testosterone showed up, and then they didn't. That was a total segue. I just want to talk about my boobs, apparently. Such a kook. All right, so back on target. So you could say these people will say like you either have a penis or a vagina, and that's it. There's no other option, and that's a false dichotomy because we already know there's other options. There are people who are intersex. There are people who are born with neither penises nor vaginas. Honestly, if someone were being smart about gender sex arguments, they would talk about testicles and ovaries because those are the actual sex organs. Ovaries produce estrogen, which causes your body to form in a different way. Testicles produce testosterone, which causes your body to form in a certain way. It's really those hormones. Everybody's body possesses the ability to turn into a boy or turn into a girl. It's actually not the Y chromosome that makes that decision. It just responds to testosterone and says, wee, I'm going to turn the gonads into testicles. And if the Y chromosome is not there or the SRY gene is faulty, then the body says, well, we're defaulting to ovaries. And then once those gonads turn into the primary sex organs, then everything else follows on from there. But you could take me, if I had like appropriate stem cells and whatnot and give me enough estrogen and block all the testosterone in my body, if you could actually narrow my shoulders and whatnot and certain things, like you could turn my body into a girl's body. And in fact, to a certain extent, that's what's happening. And trans men experience this even more, especially if they do it young enough. They will actually grow broad shoulders and more muscles, and they won't have their hips. If they do it before their hips widen, they won't have wide hips, and they'll grow beards, and they will actually grow all secondary male sex attributes. And should we ever solve stem cells well enough that we can convert skin stem cells into generic stem cells, they could grow testicles too. Like, all these things are possible. All the instructions exist within our bodies to build either gender, is what I'm getting at. So the whole penis versus vagina thing is stupid. It's like saying it can only be one of these two things, and we have like gobs of evidence that there's other things out there as well. And some people say, well, you're just a minority. But I mean, there are more people with these chromosomal and pure biological abnormalities than with like a lot of other diseases that we recognize. So you can't just like write us off. There's a lot of us. I mean, like there's possibly 2% of the population, which in the United States is like almost like half the size, almost the size of the population of New England. You can't just say like New England doesn't matter because it's snowy there all the time. Who cares about them? Sorry, I'm going to segue a little bit less. We're going to get on track. So it's just basically when someone presents only two options and says you have to pick one. It's you're either for us or against us scenario. It's like, no, I'm actually not for you and I'm not against you. I'm going to go for pizza. Like, there are other options. It's not always just two. And especially people use it when they use it to sort of control the narrative by forcing you into picking one of these two options. That's a total gaslight move, by the way, to present false dichotomies and force someone to pick, even though they're like, I don't like either of these options. They both stink. I want, like, if you give me A, B, there's like 24 other letters. Let's go with those ones. The hasty generalization fallacy. The hasty generalization fallacy was basically when you just draw huge conclusions off of like tiny little bits of evidence. So you could say, for example, that, I don't know, like everybody in my family owns vehicles with rear-wheel drives, and no one in my family has ever had accidents. Therefore, rear-wheel drive cars are safer than all the other cars that are out there. Or my family's just better drivers than everybody else out there. Or like maybe your family doesn't drive that much. Like there could be lots of reasons why this sort of thing has happened. Maybe you live in a place where there's like 3 other cars on the road, and it's never dark. I don't know. Could be all sorts of reasons why your family never has accidents. That you're just basically just sort of grabbing at like some random thing, and it's very much tied to using anecdotal evidence as well. So, and this is the other one where you also could jump to conclusions, and it falls into catastrophizing as well. So catastrophizing is when like something bad happens, like, I don't know, like you're late for work and you're like, oh my God, I'm gonna be late for work. And therefore, my boss is going to yell at me. And if my boss yells at me, I'm going to cry and I'll be able to work all day. And then he's going to fire me because I'm not being productive enough. And if he fires me because I'm not being productive enough, then I'm going to miss my rent. And if I miss my rent, then I can't feed my kids. And if I can't feed my kids, they get taken away from me. And then eventually I'm going to lose my house. I'm going to be living in a cardboard box down by the river. Not even a van. You don't even get a van. You're in a cardboard box down by the river. That's a catastrophization, which is sort of a problem that people with anxiety have. And some other people have it too. But it's also like a hasty generalization, in that you've jumped to conclusions. You've taken one small bit of information, you've just constructed this entire scenario out of this one small bit of information. The opposite is the slothful induction fallacy, where someone presents you like this really big argument, with all this information or case, not argument necessarily, or evidence or whatnot, and you're just like, nah, too hard. I can't like be bothered to alter my core axioms to deal with this. You know, it's just forget it. I don't care. As evidenced by me, like oftentimes saying like, here's all the reasons why the human body is not like just X, Y, X, X. Because I mean, there's XXX and XXXY and XXXY and XO. You know, like there's it's like tic-tac-toe down there. It's just crazy, people. Come on. It's like tic-tac-toe with all sorts of different letters. It's multi-letter tic-tac-toe. You have no idea. There's like 47 hash marks. It's madness. Just like white fuzz flying everywhere as I do this. You can't see it, but it's there, I promise. All right, so that's just when someone just refuses to acknowledge the preponderance of evidence and they're just like, nope. And you're like, I want to punch you in the face with kittens, because kittens have claws and they're bouncy, so they'll be fine. The correlation causation fallacy. And this one is when I was talking before about my family never getting in accidents and they all drive rear-wheel drive cars. I mean, that's was also an example of it was a dual purpose logical fallacy, because that's the correlation that somehow the existence of rear-wheel drive is the reason why none of us have had accidents. I mean, this is not true, by the way. My family has had plenty of accidents. I mean, I had multiple car accidents before I was 19, so let's not act like I'm pretending I'm anything special here, folks. But yeah, it's just when you just basically say it's the old all dogs have four legs and all chairs have four legs, therefore chairs are dogs. Like there's no correlation between chairs and dogs based on four legs. It's not a corollary point that we can use for anything. It's just not a thing, okay? It's not a thing. Deal with it, people. It's not a thing. The anecdotal evidence fallacy. Anecdotal evidence is when someone picks one example of something, and it's usually a personal example, and they use it to try and prove a point to change your mind, rather than actually using like statistical data or something. I mean, I know statistics are evil, and anecdotes are so nice and warm and fuzzy because we get to talk about people and kittens and stuff like that. But sometimes we actually have to look at cold, hard facts about when people are mean to kittens. It happens, like when people punch other people in the face with kittens. Who would do something like that? It's terrible. Can't believe it. Can't believe it. Yeah, so anecdotal evidence. So you have to watch out too for politicians. They're the worst at this one, because politicians love to tell you a story about, like, you know, some little old lady that they met who told them about her grandson, who had a story about a dog, you know, and it tugs at the heartstrings, and we can make a personal connection, which humans love to do. We love to make personal connections, and then we all just sort of go from there and be like, oh my goodness, it's the thing. And they're nice because, I mean, data is, you know, statistics aren't fun. Statistics are impersonal and cold, and statistics sometimes tell you have to ignore groups of people because there's not enough of them to matter. Shoot. Am I that group of people? Do I not matter? No, because we are the size of New England, therefore we matter. I mean, honestly, we live in a pretty advanced society. We can kind of take care of everybody. I mean, like, really, like, are we like, oh, well, you know, that group of people, there's not enough of them. They're just going to have to die. Survival of the fittest still, you know. It's not like we're all driving Mercedes-Benzes, you know, and like burning corn for gasoline because we've got so much food and fuel. Well, we don't have fuel, but we have lots of food, but we burn it for fuel. I don't understand that one. Corn lobby. I'm going to get shut down by the corn lobby now. Look what I've done. It's terrible. The Texas sharpshooter fallacy. The Texas sharpshooter fallacy, which, I mean, I don't know. I like Texas, actually. I think it's a great place down there. I came out, actually, as a trans woman in Texas and had a fantastic time. Everybody in Texas was amazing. It was like the best time of my life. I went to a place called the Neighborhood. It's in my book. You're going to have to get my book. And I'm going back to the Neighborhood and back to that awesome lesbian bar, though, in June of this year. So I'll probably have brand new stories about how amazing it is down there. But we're going to call this the, I don't know, like, sorry, Texas. It's just going to be the Texas sharpshooter. It's the way it is. I didn't feel like singling anyone else out. Like, who am I going to do? Like the Phoenix sharpshooter? It's like, I don't know. It could be a reason. The Oklahoma sharpshooter, the Maine. You know, it could be the Floridian sharpshooter. That's Sawyer, Florida. I mean, come on. Like, I'm not the first person to try and pull a Florida man on you when it wasn't real. You just have to deal with it. It's a thing. Suck it up. So it's basically you have the sharpshooter. He's like, I can nail those facts just perfectly, and so he fires he shoots at the barn and then draws the bullseye around the barn, around where he shot in the barn. Says, "Look at that, hole in one, bullseye." He doesn't even know what idioms to use. He's terrible. It's a terrible person, this sharpshooter, and you see this a lot. Like if you read like business books and whatnot, where some guy was in business or some woman was in business, or like a guy and a girl were in business, or like a gender fluid person who's they was in business. These people are in business, doesn't matter who they are. And they go through all this stuff and they do all these steps and whatnot, and they have bingo, they have success. Ooh, success. Sexy. It is, right? Because that's why it's called success. It's got sex in there. You just have to pronounce it right. Trust me. Like when I used to hear the song "Gotta Get Dressed for Success," I used to think she was singing "Gotta Get Dressed for Sudden Sex," and I was like, "Quality. That's planning ahead. Dressing for sudden sex. Is it like a pull ripcord somewhere on your outfit? Like what is that?" Anywho, pulling back from the segue. Pulling back. I can do it. But you'll see people that, like, they're successful in business. Did it right. And then they write a book about it, and they sort of construct this narrative about what they did in business to be successful. And you can kind of tell, like, you know what, you kind of didn't know what the fuck you were doing right about here. You're just making this whole "we had a grand plan" thing up. And that happens a lot, basically, where people are like, "I knew what I was doing all along." That's really what it is. It's the "I knew what I was doing all along" fallacy. And it also might ignore the fact that, like, let's say, for example, that business failed, after they wrote the book, and they also still don't know why it failed. The middle ground fallacy. So the middle ground fallacy purports that somehow that compromises are always better than the not compromises. And what I've found in many cases is that oftentimes compromises are good, but oftentimes compromises because, like, say, for example, certain solutions sometimes require you to do all the things. Like, I don't know, imagine a waste treatment plant or something like that. Like a waste treatment plant has to go through all these steps to make sure that the water's not going to kill you when it comes out. And you're like, well, we're going to compromise on some of the things that we do in our waste treatment plant. And you're like, then the water comes out like full of bacteria, is going to kill you. Like, you might as well just not do it if you're going to compromise on how you do it. And that can be true of a lot of things, where you might have a solution that requires, where it's got like some good parts and bad parts, and another solution has some good parts and bad parts, and you compromise, and all you do is you put in the bad parts. Like, we used to have a saying, because then that happens a lot when you design things by committee or develop things by committee. We used to have a saying where I worked that in one of the jobs I had, that none of us are as dumb as all of us, which is to say that things designed by committee are usually worse than what any one of us would have done on our own. My voice is getting raspy because this is my second take, because I did the first take and I used some new capture software and it recorded in some weird ass format that my video editor couldn't do. And I think I could have probably figured out how to get around it, but there was this annoying whine in the audio, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna record it all over again. So you're getting like some sort of like weird take two. I'm like remembering some parts of what I said before. I'm making brand new stuff. It's amazing. It's like, I mean, I should record both of them. We could watch them side by side and see if I contradicted myself anywhere in these descriptions. No, that would be like really weird. Let's not do that. The burden of proof fallacy. The burden of proof fallacy, basically, when someone claimed that X is true, and then it's up to everybody else to prove that it's not true. Like a perfect example would be like, and then you get to like run around claiming it's true because no one's ever disproved it. So, aliens built the Great Pyramid because no one's ever proved that aliens have not built the Great Pyramid. It's true. Aliens did. They did. Aliens built the Great Pyramid because no one can prove otherwise. It's like, or they didn't, and you can't prove otherwise. Like, it doesn't work. It's along the same idea of like it's actually impossible to prove a negative. You can't make a negative statement and then prove it, because you can't prove the non-existence of a thing, because then you have to be everywhere all at once to prove it's not anywhere. Like you say, like, there is nowhere in the universe right now is there I don't know, like a squirrel pigeon. There's no squirrel pigeons in the universe. They don't exist. It's like, how do I prove that? I have to be like everywhere in the entire universe all at once to prove there are no squirrel pigeons anywhere. Like, that's impossible. You can't do that. By the time I tell myself, well, I'm everywhere, the universe will be over. It's just not going to work, people. It's not going to work. You can't tell me there aren't any squirrel pigeons. There probably are. All right. The personal incredulity, I couldn't say this in the first take of this video either. The personal incredulity. The personal incredulity fallacy, where I'm just incredulous that the thing you've told me, it's preposterous that hormones matter more than genes when it comes to gender. It's insane. I cannot believe it. My 1950s textbook told me that we had 46 chromosomes, and some of them were XX and some of them were XY. And there was none of this nonsense of like the SRY gene bonding to the X chromosome, and then XX people are actually like growing penises and stuff like that and are fully male because that's the only thing that makes us different, is that SR. Well, it's probably not, actually. It actually could be an explanation for why some women, it's crazy. It's bizarre. So basically, just like, I'm incredulous, therefore you're wrong. is what that argument basically comes down to. And then they assume there must be some other factor, like the presence of a dick, that determines whether or not you're boy or girl. This is my favorite of all logical fallacies because it has the best name. It's the no true Scotsman. Like I cannot do a girl voice at all when I'm doing a Scotsman. Let me try. It's the no true Scotsman fallacy. I just sound like a queer Scotsman, which I suppose is fine. I could be a queer Scotsman. Well, I can't because I'm not into boys at all. I'm really just into girls. I'm like a really butch, lesbian, queer Scotswoman. That's exactly what I am. It explains everything. I mean, I know this out with the chromosomes and hormones and whatnot. It's because I'm Scottish. I might actually be a little bit Scottish, like a teensy little bit. Anyway, the idea is that you got a Scotsman. His name is Barry. It's a very Scottish name. And you got another Scotsman named Bob. And Barry's like, no true Scotsman would ever like London. It's a cesspit. And Bob's like, I don't know, I kind of like London. It's kind of a cool place down there, you know? It's got the Ferris wheel. You have to go round and round. And then Barry's like, then you're not a true Scotsman. And it's the idea. It's like it's like I say, like, you know, no true, I don't know, no true atheist would ever acknowledge the existence of God. And then someone comes along and says, well, I kind of like, maybe a God could exist. Well, then you're no true atheist. That actually one might actually kind of work because of the definition of the word. But, you know, you get my point. Like, you're just basically just sort of like, you can make up any rule you want and say that unless you're, you know, no true, this type of person, whatever, like no true American would ever be against the Second Amendment. Someone says, well, I'm an American, you know, like, well, you're obviously not a true American. You can make that up about anything. You can sort of just create these arguments where you can say you're not really the thing you are because you don't agree with me. It's a lovely little cyclical argument. The two quoque fallacy, which is me butchering Latin. I'm sure someone will tell me how to. You know, I don't have that many followers yet. I might actually be out in the cold in this one. I might not have a follower that's going to come and tell me how to pronounce this Latin word. It's kind of heartbreaking. It means you also. And it's basically just means you answer criticism with criticism. A great one was I was criticizing someone on their use of logical fallacies in a Facebook post, because that's where, you know, the world is governed by Facebook posts, and it's very important that we engage with all trolls at all times. I need so many deep breaths some days. And they answer your criticism with another criticism. So in this case, they told me that I have a big nose, and I clearly have the largest. It's either the largest or the ugliest nose of anybody in human history. To which I responded, well, if you're going to make that claim, then we actually need to create a lineup of all ugly noses in human history and put mine against them, and we'll see how it does. I mean, I admit I have a bit of a honker. I'm kind of afraid that as I get older, this thing could just eventually consume my entire face, and I want to be able to see around it. But until then, you know, it's not that bad. And I'm going to let it just sort of like do its thing, because I actually think that girls with big schnozzes are kind of sexy. You know, it's like they got character. And a girl who can look sexy with a big nose is like extra sexy because she's got that confidence. She's like, I got a honking schnoz. Maybe I have like a cleft chin and like, you know, a snaggletooth. And I'm so fucking hot. And it's going to own it. And you're like, ooh, confidence, sexy. You know, that happens. It does. So I'm keeping the schnoz. Screw you, jerk face. Jerk face. That's what my sister used to call me. All right. The fallacy. Almost sounds like I'm talking about something phallic there. The phallic fallacy? No, the fallacy. And that's where someone makes an argument that includes a logical fallacy, and then you say, like, you're wrong, just because they include a logical fallacy. But we all know that, like, you could be a crappy arguer and your actual core reason could still be right. The thing you're actually arguing about, you could be right. Like, I could be saying that concrete is stronger than asphalt because I don't know, Elton John is fabulous. You know, like that's just so stupid. I don't even know if there's logical fallacy rating for just pure stupid. But like, I don't know, I can make an ad hominem attack like I don't know. Well, you get the point. It's just you make an argument that's stupid and fallacious. But you can actually still be right. Concrete is harder than asphalt. I mean, you know, generally speaking. So that's just sort of the idea there. It's fallacy. But you can't actually dismiss someone just because they use logical fallacy. That's why at the beginning I said you have to tell them to come back. Say, like, you know, go and research and learn about why you're wrong about everything and all of your core beliefs are incorrect, and then come back and we'll talk. Right? That's how you do it. I'm pretty sure. Pay attention. The funny thing is, like, my list, I forgot ad hominem, and ironically, this is my second take, and I still forgot ad hominem. Not ad hominem just means a personal attack, where someone makes a point and you make a personal attack, which is like my one about the nose. So maybe that's why they like put that one as like answering criticism with criticism. But I think, well, criticism with criticism is one thing, but there's also criticism, answering criticism with a personal attack, which is like usually like you're ugly, you know. Something like that, like, and you saw this. This is where last time I wandered into this political quagmire. I'm kind of glad that it didn't make it into this video because I was talking about how politicians behave. But we all know that, like, basically, like, argue with my nose. My nose is ugly, therefore my arguments are incorrect. That's an ad hominem attack. It's making a personal attack. Has nothing to do with actually what's actually going on. People did to Hillary all the time. They just said that she was a fat cow. I personally, my issues with Hillary were largely based around the fact that she was just a bad crook. Like, if I'm gonna have a president, I want my president to be the best crook. We didn't get that. You know, Obama was really smooth. If he was a crook, it was actually kind of hard to tell. You know, he was smooth. And Trump wears his crookdom, so he's getting away with it somehow. But I want a smooth criminal for my president. You know, I think that's fair. I think I deserve a smooth criminal for president. But my real issue with Hillary was the fact that she kept her server in a bathroom in the basement. I mean, like, come on, girl. If you're going to keep a server full of mail you're not supposed to have, at least like put it somewhere like in like a climate-controlled room. Don't put it in the bathroom in the basement. I worked in IT for a very long time. I was offended by that. You know, it's cruel and unusual treatment of a server. So you can't be president now. That's it. You're out. You're out. Because you were mean to a piece of hardware that some poor tech like me is going to like crouch behind a toilet and fix that thing. Like, that's just rude. Who does that to other people? All right. There you have it. Those are 15 or so logical fallacies. I feel like I skipped over one because I don't remember 3 at all, but, you know, I'm sure it was there. And maybe it was logical fallacy. No. I got nothing. It's fine. So you're still with me. I love you. You are fabulous. There's a little red rectangle underneath the screen. It says subscribe. If it's red, click it. If it's gray, don't click it. Leave it alone. Don't touch if it's gray, only if it's red. There's a bell next to that. Touch the bell or click it. You know, whatever interaction device you have with your computer, do that thing and ring it so that it shows like a little ringy symbol around, because that means you'll get notifications about my new videos when they come out. Otherwise, you have to go to subscriptions over on the left-hand side or whatever it looks like in whatever stupid interface you're using on your device. I don't care. Look, okay? I don't know. Well, I do. I really do care. I want you to watch my videos. Please, please watch my videos. It would really make me happy inside. Right here. Well, not specifically right here because this is fur. It's not part of my body. And underneath that, these breasts are kind of mostly still silicone. So like up underneath, like right in there is where it'll make me happy. Trust me, it's there. I have a heart. It's there. All right. And like and comment too. Please like. That actually matters a lot. And if you comment, it's even better. It's like leaving a review on a book. It warms my heart that we've already discussed where it may or may not be underneath silicone and fur. And it just makes me happy. So it was awesome talking to you guys about this. Let me know if you want me to talk about any other topics too, like in the comments. That would be fine. I would love to chat about all sorts of crazy things. And we'll see you guys around. Have a good one. Is it over? Did you guys stop the video? Who's going to stop this thing? I mean, I'm going to have to get up. And now, because I have to get up, I have to cut off the end, which means I had like this, I had a perfect take. I did the whole thing in one perfect take, like flawless all the way through. I don't need to edit anything out. But now, because I have to get up, I'm going to have to like do this where I get up and I walk towards the computer and my angle might not be good. Like, I got to make sure, like, is my angle good? Oh yeah. There we go. Okay. See you guys.